I'm Nigel Slater. I don't think great cooking has to be complicated, and it definitely shouldn't be a chore. Sometimes, the best things to cook are the simplest. For me, that's what cooking is all about. Combinations like surf and turf, soft and crisp, sweet and sour. I'll be taking a fresh look at favourite recipes.
It's like heaven on a spoon.
And also cooking up some new ones.
Quite unusual, but it's a success.
And when you see how much fun you can have in the kitchen, I hope you'll be inspired too. Today is all about the marriage of weird and wonderful. It's about making familiar recipes more exciting with unexpected twists and new ingredients.
Sometimes it's the most unlikely combinations that give me the tastiest results. That's when cooking gets really exciting.
I want to explore the unusual and the familiar at home in the kitchen and out in the country.
There is no doubt that this is game. Masses of flavour. I'm not the sort of cook who travels the world trying to find weird things to eat. But I do like to bring the changes. And much more fun, to my mind, is to take something I know very well, something familiar, and give it a new lease of life. Give it a surprise.
So I'm taking an unusual approach to one of my favourites, apple crumble. I want to play with the flavours and make a savoury version. Something to try with a Sunday roast, or even alongside some sausages. Half a dozen apples should be enough.
There's two ways to approach the filling for a crumble. You either cook the fruit from raw with the crumble topping on it, or you just give the fruit a few minutes in a pan with a little bit of butter to start with. You know, so often cooking is about getting something on the table at the end of the day. It's about feeding the hungry hordes, but I think it also can be about having a little bit of fun. A rainy afternoon, a few ingredients, and just playing a bit.
These apples just need a few minutes to stew. Plenty of time to make my crumble topping. It starts in the usual way with butter and flour.
Now I'm just going to rub the butter into the flour, which you can do in a food processor and it takes seconds. But I like the feel of food in my hands, particularly baking. I just end up with a good, rich, basic crumble. Check the apples, see how they're coming on. Now they're looking good. They're looking nice and soft. I'm going to put in a little bit of Madeira. I'm going to use masala. Just something to give it a grown-up flavour.
So far, so traditional. But I want my crumble to be a bit different. Time for the savoury twist.
Apples and cheese are one of life's perfect marriages. So I'm going to grate into that a little bit of Parmesan cheese.
A good strong Parmesan will add real flavour to this.
Probably need 3 or 4 tablespoons.
Breadcrumbs will add to the savoury edge and crisp up beautifully.
I'm just thinking of something that will work with the apples. Maybe a little bit of thyme. I've actually got some lemon thyme, which just has that little extra bit of freshness.
Lemon thyme works well in stuffing and will add a delicate freshness.
So the apple's really quite soft and it's soaked up a little bit of that alcohol, and then it gets its crumble topping.
A final shower of Parmesan and into the oven it goes. I'm grateful for the rain today. It's a wonderful excuse to stay inside, pour myself a drink and just enjoy the scent of baking. It's deeply savoury from the cheese and thyme, but there's definitely the sweetness of apple in there too.
Looks like a crumble. Something very familiar and friendly about that. I'm expecting pudding, but I'm actually getting something that reminds me of an old-fashioned ploughman's lunch with a big lump of cheese and an apple. It would be a really nice thing to have on the side with some cold roast meat. Quite unusual, but it's a success.
The cheese has made a classic apple crumble into something intriguing for very little effort. I'd happily eat this for supper any day of the week, and especially with sausages. Although I've cooked every day since I was young, I've still got so much to learn. That's the great thing about experimenting. You can read all the cookery books you like, but you'll never know if something works and if you like it until you try it. And that's especially true when a recipe contains unfamiliar things.
There are one or two ingredients that I truly love or hate. My list of hate ingredients is very short. But there are things that I never used to like, things I wouldn't think of eating, that not only have I learned to love, but they've actually become some of my favourite ingredients. And one of them is black pudding.
If you've never tried black pudding, or you want to persuade someone to give it a go, this fantastic supper dish is a great place to begin. I start by frying a couple of onions in butter, but I'm not going to serve them on the side. They're going to go into the sausage roll itself.
If you cook onions slowly, they become incredibly sweet and treacly, and that's exactly what I want, because it works beautifully with the real savoury quality of a black pudding.
I'm also adding the simple flavours of bay leaf and thyme. And now the pastry. Ready rolled puff pastry is a great standby to have in the fridge or freezer, and makes this recipe so quick and easy.
A lot of British butchers are now starting to experiment with their black pudding recipes, and they're making softer types, similar to those in France and Spain. They're more pliable and a little bit spicy, and they are really, really delicious.
If you're still not convinced by these new black puddings, then just use a favourite sausage. It'll still taste great. The onions are dark golden brown, so it's time to put the sausage roll together. Use beaten egg to seal the edges of the parcel, so that none of the delicious juices leak out.
If I wanted to introduce somebody to the pleasures of black pudding, this is what I do. Very few people can resist a sausage roll. Now that needs to go into a really hot oven, at least 200 degrees.
I'd like a familiar sauce to serve with my unusual black pudding.
Now if it's sausages, it's got to be mustard. There are two things that for me just go hand in glove.
I'm mixing some smooth and grain mustard into some single cream a little bit at a time.
And just taste as you go. That needs a little bit more mustard, and it really is the only way to tell, just to put your finger in and taste it.
Then I need some old-fashioned curly parsley, another perfect partner for any sausage. Finally, a twist of salt and pepper. The sausage roll will take about 20 minutes in a hot oven. I reckon the waiting is the hardest part of this recipe.
It smells wonderful. It's coming up through the little cracks in the pastry. Then, some of my parsley sauce.
This cream sauce would add a touch of luxury to any sausage supper. So I'm sure it'll finish my black pudding off nicely.
Oh, that's absolutely delicious. And if you don't like the idea of black pudding, maybe you'll like it like that. It really is a very special sausage roll.
Trying a new ingredient in a familiar recipe like this is such an easy way of opening up your everyday cooking. The important thing is to give it a go. My search for weird and wonderful dishes has brought me to one of the most beautiful places in Britain, the Peak District, and to Thornbridge Hall near Bakewell. I'm here to meet a man who's got something very unusual to show me.
I've always been interested in the wild boar. They're a very intriguing animal. I lived in New Zealand for 4 years, and over there obviously they run wild, they're not farmed. And I realised that over here there's a demand for the meat, which is getting more and more popular.
Tom Clark used to be a butcher until he gave it up to raise wild boar, which roam free in part of the estate. It's feeding time, and in a fine example of recycling, Tom gives his boars the waste grain from a brewery that's housed on the estate.
I'm loving it. So these are the grains that come from after you brew the beer?
Yep.
That's the husks, isn't it? That's
That's
the
the
outside
husk
husk.
and the
It smells like a
wheat
cross
and
between
barley,
brown toast and chocolate.
Yeah.
I feel as if I've kind of travelled back
Yeah,
to medieval times. I mean, they were extinct at one point, weren't they?
they were 300 years ago. They were native wild animals in England, and then obviously they went out, hunted them and wiped them out, and now we're slowly introducing them back, but farmed for safety reasons. They have a good life, you know, they have a
I
good
can
life.
tell they have a good life. I mean, I like meeting things I'm going to eat. I think it's kind of important.
It is.
Because otherwise you're so divorced from the animal when you see it pre-packed on the supermarket shelf.
It's slightly sweeter than normal pork. Not as strong as venison, even though it is game.
A bit of applesauce with it.
Bit of applesauce, yeah. Gravy, in my opinion, I think. Sausage has to be with gravy.
We're heading back to the house, where Tom's going to make lunch for us both from the meat he prepares himself. Oh, so that's the boar.
That's the stuff.
That doesn't look anything like pork.
No, almost beefy looking.
I like this fat.
That's what's on the outside of the animal. You see, on the outside of the wild boar, the fat's on the outside and nothing in the middle. That's its insulation.
Fantastic. If I wanted to do something quick with it, you'd mince it?
Ideally mince it, hence by doing a burger, it's quick, it's simple, ingredients in it. There's fat mixed in with it, you see, so it doesn't fall apart, and it's seasoned it, and it stays together and doesn't dry it out. We're using little hand mixer there. I normally do 70% meat, 30% fat.
Making your own burgers is so simple. If you can't get hold of wild boar, then try making them with minced beef, pork, or lamb. The great thing is that you'll know exactly what's gone into them, and you can add whatever you fancy. You'd season this with probably not very much.
Not a great deal, because you want the taste of the wild boar. I'll just put a few herbs in there, just to give it a bit of a lift.
Tom adds red onion, garlic, and chopped rosemary.
I keep looking at this and I keep thinking it's beef, but you're adding what I think of as pork seasonings.
Yes.
The rosemary and the garlic.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to make them into rough burgers again. It's a wild boar, it's a rugged animal. Nothing neat about it, in my opinion. Couple of minutes each side, that's all we need with that.
Don't be afraid of trying game. It's a bit different from your everyday meat, but I love its deep, distinct flavour.
When you smell them cooking, there is no doubt that this is game.
Yes,
There is
absolutely.
that rich, almost woodsy note
Yeah, I
of
agree.
game meat.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Look at that.
This will be the first time I've ever eaten a wild boar burger. Rough looking and rustic with just 3 ingredients, it couldn't be simpler. It might be an unusual meat, but the fact it was raised just down the road is wonderful.
That is probably the most handsome burger I've ever seen.
It's pretty.
I hope you're not expecting me to eat this elegantly. Because I'm not.
There's no elegant way of eating a burger.
Isn't that good?
Perfect.
It's kind of quite wild flavours.
Yes, yeah. It's not too harsh.
No. Masses of flavour. It's a good burger, Tom. Good burger.
The wild boar meat is simply sensational. If you want to try it, look in farm shops, delis, or good butchers. Get the details on our website, along with more ideas for how you can experiment yourself.
It's all too easy to be a little bit dismissive of things we don't know and understand. And that includes the vegetable world. I never knew how to treat kohlrabi. I know they're very beautiful vegetables, very unusual to look at, but I really didn't know what to do with them. I might have even been a little bit rude about them.
You might not have come across kohlrabi. The name literally means cabbage turnip, but they're actually more sweet and juicy, which makes them perfect to pair with some more familiar fruit and veg in a delicious winter coleslaw. The pale green kohlrabi looks amazing with these thin slices of white and pink grapefruit. If you're not a grapefruit fan, you could use a large tangy orange instead. Now a little dressing. I need a squeeze of lemon juice and some salty capers.
And then also in there, just a little bit of olive oil. I want this salad to be full of crunch. I want it to invigorate and surprise.
So I'm just going to put together a simple, luscious topping.
I'm putting in some little spring onions, very finely sliced. I've got a tiny bit of garlic in there as well. I only use garlic raw if it's very juicy and fresh looking. So a few slivers of that. And then some yoghurt.
This creamy yoghurt would be great as part of any crunchy salad, but I'm going to try it with another underused veg.
I think I'd seen celeriac sitting around in the greengrocers for years. I didn't know what it was. There's something very cleansing about the smell of celeriac. This is the sort of salad that I'd eat when I had a hangover, or maybe if I'd eaten too much the day before. Celeriac browns quite quickly when you cut it, so it's worth having a lemon on hand just to squeeze over it.
I think the salad could do with some more fresh parsley.
It's a lovely grounding effect on a dish. Brings it back to earth. But quite a few things that are either new to me or things I don't use very often. So I need something in there that I know really well, and that's beetroot.
Add a little olive oil to the yoghurt mixture, toss together with the grated veg, and you're ready to assemble the salad.
Onto here. You know, I do love soothing food with familiar flavours, but I also like things that startle and excite. It's crisp and it's crunchy and it's got that sourness to it as well, and it's delicious. It's a new, fresh salad and I love it.
I spent much too long ignoring our more unusual vegetables. This dazzling dish just reminds me of how versatile and full of flavour they are, both raw and cooked. Kohlrabi and celeriac, give them a chance. They might just end up as a regular treat. I'm at Thornbridge Hall in Derbyshire with wild boar farmer Tom Clark. Earlier, Tom introduced me to something new with his tasty boar burger. So I want to cook something just as interesting and wonderful for him. His impressive kitchen garden is bound to provide me with the wonderful bit.
And even at this time of year, there's still an amazing amount going on. Yeah. I love these. This to me looks like what I call purple Russian. And at the top of the plant, they're really tender. I can't resist this Cavolo Nero black cabbage. So can I nick some of the tiny little sprouts here?
So what's the difference then, Nigel, other than the purple, the green sprout?
Not a lot in terms of flavour, but what I like about them is that they look so pretty on the plate. Yeah. It's actually looking quite good.
It's looking rather healthy.
Yes, it's looking very healthy.
So now I've got my wonderful veg, I need something weird to go with them. I've got a recipe idea that could make use of the estate's homegrown beer. So Jim Harrison, the brains behind the brewery, has bought me a few to choose from.
We've got quite a selection here, running from a wheat beer to beautifully hopped, light-coloured beers.
Ah, that's what I want. What I'm after is something very light and fresh tasting to make a very crisp, light batter.
That's your man. That'll fit the bill perfectly.
Lovely.
While Jim heads back to some more brewing, I'm joining Tom to make a start on the veg that we picked in the garden.
So I want a very light batter to cling to these because they're so delicate.
Yeah.
Although their flavours are quite strong. So a little bit of flour to that, and pop in an egg yolk.
That will help bind it together, would it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just make it just that little bit richer.
I often use wine in my cooking, but I rarely get the chance to cook with beer. But this batter gives me the perfect excuse to open a bottle.
You feel it's light on the whisk.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's got lumps in. It doesn't make any difference at all.
The beer should give me a lovely light batter. You could use it to experiment with other types of veg, or a bit of fish.
I mean, traditionally, you wouldn't use a beer batter for tempura, but I think that the beer with the cabbage leaves will be amazing.
Yes.
The leaves will only need a few minutes to cook, until the batter is light and crisp.
I mean, this is slightly experimental. I want to try some of these little sprouts. I have to say, I've never deep fried a sprout before.
In my opinion, it makes it more interesting, so I'm not a sprout lover.
Oh, are you not a sprout lover?
No, Christmas Day only, that's it. People who don't like the veg, it's a good, fun, exciting way of eating them, I think. I've never tried the tempura batter on veg before.
And certainly not on sprouts.
No.
These crisp vegetables are crying out for a dip, so I'm just making a very quick one with fresh orange, lemon juice and soy sauce.
So what do you fancy then?
I'm going to try a sprout. Go straight in there, I think.
All right. Dip it in.
It doesn't taste like a sprout. It's sweeter. Sweet
Right.
with the sharpness of the dip. And you can actually taste the beer in the batter, which I didn't actually think you would. As well as the sharpness of the dip, you can tell there's beer.
I mean, that's quite exciting to me.
Yeah.
The sour, sweet dip. And then these sort of earthy greens.
So it's a hit with Tom, even the sprouts. But what will Jim think of what I've done with his beer?
Am I dipping in here?
Yeah, dip it into the citrus and soy.
Beautiful.
Crunchy, eh?
Very crunchy. It's fantastic, isn't it? Marvellous.
Thank you very much. And it does seem to work. It's that lightness of the batter that I think that was the right
The right beer
batter.
worked really well, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I could keep eating that all day long. Beautiful.
We all know that fish is great in a batter, but I found the same is even true of a sprout. It just goes to show what could happen if you experiment a little.
Sometimes things really take you by surprise. Remember ordering bread and butter pudding once and thinking I was on very safe ground. But I got something very surprising. A traditional bread and butter pudding full of wonderful spices and coconut milk. Although it was a dish I recognised and was very happy to eat, it just came with this wonderful variation, and I've never forgotten it.
You might think that something as classic as good old bread and butter pudding can't be improved on, but trust me, a few aromatic spices and some rich coconut milk will transform a familiar dish into something new and wonderful. I'm starting by making the custard base. I need egg yolks and some coconut milk.
It's got a richness to it that will work very, very nicely with the spices.
And some ordinary milk.
Now, the reason that this pudding was so wonderful was because of the sweet spices. They were unexpected, and the first one that went in was vanilla. Now, you can use vanilla extract, but I quite like using a whole pod. And just scrape some of the seeds out, drop them into the custard. I'm going to put the split pod in there as well, because you'll get masses of flavour in there. The next spice to go in is possibly my favourite of all. If I could only take one spice to my desert island, it would be cardamom. Something magical about the smell of this stuff. It's a warming smell. Then there's this hit of the exotic about it.
Cinnamon's the last spice to go in, and some sugar. I'm using muscovado as it's got a rich butterscotch flavour.
There are so many breads that you can use in this pudding. I think I've used every bread there is, including hot cross buns, and they've all been delicious.
Spread the bread with some soft butter. How you arrange the slices is up to you, but I do think it's nice to cut the crusts off.
Then just on the top, a little bit of demerara sugar. Sometimes I feel I could cook just for the smell of cooking alone, and this is one of those moments.
Have the oven quite low, so the custard bakes slowly. As a treat, I want to make a caramelised banana topping to go with my pud. You'll need 2 or 3 quite firm fruits. Cook them slowly in butter with a generous sprinkle of sugar.
So once the bananas are sizzling and starting to brown a little bit, they're going to get a bit of grated orange zest. It's simply just that last bit of freshness with something that is homely and warm and baked. Just that little zip to bring the whole thing to life. If you shake the pan, you'll see when it's ready, because it quivers slightly, almost blancmange-like. So I've got toasted bread, quivering, sweet, spicy custard, and a bit of fried banana. It's just the smell of the sweetness and the spice. It's like you've opened up a whole spice cupboard. But then you've got this back note of this lovely, sweet butterscotch sugar. It really is gorgeous. It's blissful.
Adding the coconut milk is a brilliant way to ring the changes with such a familiar pudding. What else you add is up to you. Favourite spices, dried fruits, whatever takes your fancy. The caramelised bananas would make a really lovely topping for ice cream too, if you don't have time to make the pud. In this series, I've tried lots of different food combinations. You'll find all the recipes on the website. There are so many other perfect pairings still out there to explore. It's really fired my imagination. I hope it has for you too.